OTAN, Outreach and Technical Assistance Network.
243 to go. OTAN Technology and Distance Learning Symposium 2019.
I'm going to be talking about 243 to go. My name is Jennifer Gagliardi. I'm with the Milpitas Adult School. And I also do some training for OTAN. This is one of the first trainings that I've ever done that I'm not going to be talking about citizenship, which is going to be really weird for me, okay? So if I start getting a little twitchy, yell out a citizenship question, I'll settle down, okay? So, but our students, a lot of our students, even though we're in Silicon Valley, a lot of people do not have access to computers at home, but they do have their cell phones. To a person, they do have their cell phones. So they live and die by the apps on their cell phones. A lot of the cell phones are in their native language. They have things in their native language. One of the most important things we can do is help them transition from only have apps on their native language to apps in English. One of these things that we can do also is not only to use the apps for entertainment purposes, but also to use apps to support our education programs. Most of us are doing 241 programs, is that correct? 231, 231. I'm going to screw that up a lot today. 231 programs, is that correct? Does anybody have a 243 that they're working on? Please, can you introduce yourself and talk about your program? I'm going to make a suggestion about that, okay? I'm not going to specifically address 73 because I want to propose another COAPPS in that series, okay? Anybody else doing 243? Anybody else, please? I have a question about the nutrition. Is anybody interested in starting making food in home kitchens and selling it? Is that happening in your school? Yeah, that's happening in there, and we're looking at licensing and doing a curriculum around that. Yeah, so at the very end, I'm going to talk about proposed COAPPS, okay, and I have one specifically for food. Okay, let's see. I just wanted to do a really brief overview of how I'm organizing this. As you know, the COAPPS are organized by different civics focus areas. So I'm going to talk about one from each area. Consumer economics, consumer community resources, health, unemployment, government and law. That breaks my heart. I don't see anything. But anyway, transition and workforce training. Yes, oh please, yes, go ahead, go ahead. The digital literacy, the 47448, I was really surprised where it was. It's under community resources, not under workforce, not under employment. So I was really surprised by that personally, me personally. Next slide. Okay, so I basically then divided them out of topic. I just did the topic. And so this is just a really quick guide about the ones that are specifically linked to 243. Does anybody have any questions about this one so far? Thank you. I like charts. I kind of think of that way. Yeah, and also it's a quick guide for the teachers when we go to pick these charts, because there's a lot of pressure on us to maximize our pay points. And so if we bring in a chart like this and say, look, if we use this, it'll make it easier for us to pick. We already did something about health. Let's go ahead and try to do something else, okay? Oh, I referred back to that in the previous chart. I knew that was going to happen. Okay, so here's the CE, consumer economics, consumer community resources, health, employment, government and law, transition and workforce training. Anyway, I had an interesting experience this week. My house was broken into. So thinking about the community resources and contacting the police, and I'm thinking, wow, I can make a lesson plan out of this, you know? File a police report and stuff like that, and talking about insurance forms. Anyway, so is it okay if we can continue to the next one? Okay, good. The first one that I would like to talk about is related to do a business plan. Now, you're thinking, business plan, that's kind of involved with that, right? So, for instance, like when you think about a business plan, you have to think about, first of all, what's your goal? What kind of business you want to start? What kind of resources do you have? What kind of money do you have on hand? How do you have to deliver things, et cetera, et cetera. So just say, hey, go and open up a store on Etsy or on eBay is not going to be good enough. You want to have, there's so many different stores, so many different people are doing the same thing over and over again. And students are always looking for unique ideas because they have unique ideas, but they need help articulating this. So one of the things that I like to use is a podcast called Side Hustle School. Does anybody use podcasts in their classes? Okay, these classes, they originally started as, what podcast do you use? So this one is anywhere from 3 minutes to 9 minutes every single day. There's approximately 800 podcasts, and so they're posted every day. Everybody is talking about they have an idea for a small business. They have their daytime job, but they want to make a little bit of money on the side. And people are very interested in making a little bit of money on the side. There's always a problem in there. So for instance, how do you get licensing? How do you differentiate yourself from other people's services? And then they talk about how they overcame this and then what they're doing right now. There's always a social media component in there, so people are talking about how they go through advertising. And that's a very important thing about their businesses. You can look at the online website, or you can subscribe to this on Apple Podcasts. Let me suggest why you would want to take a look at the online website. They have tags for things like Etsy or people who are doing things related to home baking, et cetera, or clothing. So when you take a look at that, that's an easy way for students to search out the particular podcast they want to take a look at. They also have, but on the other hand, when you look at the podcast, in the podcast, they have lists of resources that they refer to during the podcast. So for instance, if they need to get licensing, they have a link to where they got the licensing from. If they took an online training course, for instance, like to upgrade their Instagram, to make themselves more noticeable on Instagram, they talk about the class that they took on Instagram. So most of these resources are also free because they're trying to minimize startup expenses. So it's very, very valuable. Now, do you tell the students, hey, go out and listen to all 800 podcasts? That would be crazy and abusive, okay? So what I do is that I've been asking my ESL 6 students to go. They've all selected one podcast, they listened to it, and they've developed activities to present to the level 5 students, and then they're going to go down to level 4 students and level 3 students. What are they doing? First of all, they have to summarize what the person is doing. They have to talk about the problems that the person encountered. They have to talk about the resources that the person used to solve these problems. Okay? And they talk about how people can extend those ideas or how they can make it their own. I'm thinking of one particular podcast where somebody was talking about using Facebook Marketplace. What's the big problem with Facebook Marketplace? You're thinking, wow, am I receiving stolen goods? Okay, or am I selling stolen goods? Okay, same thing with eBay. Same thing with Craigslist. How to make sure that you got something that you can actually sell. So that's something that when the students were presenting this to each other, those are the kinds of questions that came up. This is a really good idea, but how do you know you're not receiving stolen goods? Okay? All right, so This is the 241 part of it. They're practicing their listening skills. Sorry? 231. They're practicing their listening skills. They're developing resources for other students, so they would take maybe short snippets and create a closed paragraph, and the person would fill it out. They're talking about the business plan aspect of it. Now, how can you extend this? How can you bring this into a situation where people are going to be applying this and you can get more pay points for it? You can basically, they can also download one of the apps is called Mint. People have used this again and again, and it's been referred to during the podcast. It's it's a mobile app. There's a free online component. You could get a more fancier one. You could buy a fancier one later on. But this is a way that people learn how to track their personal expenses, and then they also start creating categories related to their business. This can roll over into QuickBooks. So people do offer QuickBooks classes in our schools. They do offer accounting classes at our schools. And this is the kind of stuff that our employers are looking for when our students go out, fill out the resumes, and they say, hey, I know how to use QuickBooks, you're hired, okay? So again, please take a look at these and use them. Use the Side Hustle School to start the conversation, and use Mint and QuickBooks to basically get a little bit more financial or record keeping under their belt. Next one, COAPPS 23, we're talking about getting community resources. We have this massive website, ca.gov. It's the portal to all the services in California. It is huge and it is a mess. Come on, you guys, you know. All right? But there's some really important things in there. How many people have come to you and said, how do I renew my driver's license? Okay? That's dmv.ca.gov, right? How do I find a job? Okay, well, that's the state jobs that people can apply for. And you don't necessarily have to be a citizen to do it, okay? Looking for filing for unemployment, these kind of things, filing your taxes. A lot of people are looking for free or low-cost assistance for low-income people to file their taxes. Why? They're getting ready for citizenship. You got to make sure your taxes are filed, okay? So you have this, but you also have a very simplified version. If you go to your Apple, what's the Apple search one? Huh? The search one. Siri? Safari. If you're online, go to Safari or go to Google. I have a lot of Google products on my iPhone. Okay? You go in there, and this beautiful but very difficult thing to navigate is simplified. And they have much more reasonable things to basically help students to engage in. The language is also simplified on this. The other thing is that you can also find your California representatives. So it's actually much easier to navigate on the mobile app as opposed to the desktop. One of the things is that the students are like, yeah, I find some of the resources that I want, but I want to get personal recommendations. What's the number one site to get personal recommendations? Should I go there or I shouldn't go there? It is Yelp. Okay, and you're thinking, Yelp, that's for restaurants. Yelp isn't only for restaurants. Yelp is for everything. Yelp is for doctors, it's for plumbers, it's for all these kind of services that people need access to, and they want to deal with local people, and they want to know if they're good. So take a look at Yelp. And people have also become, students are like, wow, there's nobody there they need childcare. I'm going to put myself out there as a childcare, it's somebody who offers childcare. Boom, they got a job within 2 hours, okay? So not only are they using this as consumers, they're also using this as service providers. Also, they're using it to advertise their restaurants. Okay? Another one is Nextdoor app. Does anybody use Nextdoor? Yeah, what do you use Nextdoor for? Right, and then with Nextdoor also, we were having communities, organization meetings. Should we allow a social service to build tiny homes in our community for homeless people? They were having community meetings and people didn't know about it. They have notices in there when our congressman comes to speak, okay? So this is really, it's all the news items that go under the radar of our local newspaper. So Nextdoor, now, is it perfect? No, because this is private and it's only as good as the community makes it. So if you take it upon yourself to upload these things, for instance, my fellow teacher uploaded information that she was offering a Chinese story hour at the local library. She wasn't getting any advertisement from the library, but she put it on Nextdoor, and she immediately started getting people coming to her story hour. So this is something that's going to be really helpful. You can, but the only way to compensate for that is to post your own stuff. Again, the community is only as good as you can make it. So if you put your own stuff in there, and people will go in there, because yeah, you can buy people to upload reviews and stuff like that, absolutely. But you can also put your own review and say, I think that X, Y, and Z is true or false, okay? Okay. Oh, another thing is with Yelp, they also have another app for this for business owners. So if you've become a service provider, you can also monitor the comments about yourself. Okay, so that's a separate app, but it's also from Yelp. Next one, we're talking about COAPPS 27. Is anybody, I'm sure a lot of people, we've all gone through CPR training. And believe me, CPR training is especially important when it's your own father that's going through a heart attack, like my dad did, okay? So it was like, well, a nurse fortunately was there, but it was like, you know, I was ready to do CPR. Anyway, so they do have a free first aid training app. Now, it's always good to go through the courses, but if you have something in your pocket ready to take it out for that emergency, it's really helpful. Also, different countries have put out their own apps. So for instance, the Philippines has the Red Cross Philippines has an app. So take a look at those apps, particularly for people who speak other languages. Look at for the Red Cross app from the various countries, okay? So they not only have the first aid app, but they also have 10 other apps for emergency preparedness. And they also have one for pet first aid. Yeah, so, which is really, really helpful. So a lot of people look at this. They can also go through further training to become volunteers for the Red Cross and earn service credit for volunteer activities. So because of some of my students engaging in with the Red Cross, the apps, and then they grew from going through the apps, grew to going to the trainings, and then grew from the online trainings to actually participating in community events. This kind of thing helped them was really good on their resume when they went to apply for scholarship when they were trying to go to their college. They said, hey, I actually have experience with Red Cross. Oh, how interesting, okay? So that kind of stuff is really good for resumes. The kind of stuff is really good for own personal experience. This is from Red Cross. On the other, another thing is, I was in Santa Ana recently. And has anybody been to the Santa Ana airport recently? Anaheim Airport? They have an app where it's not an app, it's a kiosk, CPR kiosk. So you know those dummies that they have that you practice on? They have one of them, and you go through like a training while you're waiting, a free training for CPR. So they're having this in more and more websites, airports. So please take a look at it. You see it, try it. Take a look at it. They also have a really good video about this. And it was on the video, it's a young man talking about, I'm so glad this person he had a 3-hour layover. He saw this, he went through it. And the person who's telling the story is a very young man. And you're thinking, there's no way he could ever have a heart attack, right? He got struck by lightning while he was walking across the quad at his university. And everybody's around him. They saw what happened, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, we've called the emergency. Does anybody know CPR?" Well, this guy did because he had gone through the training on the kiosk. So tell our students, because a lot of our students travel, if you see this, try it. And American Heart Association wants feedback. So right now the app is in English, and I think it's also in Spanish. But if we need it in other languages, let's start giving feedback to the American Heart Association about this. Okay, let me continue on. So this is to identify a COAPPS 23 to access employment and training resources. So there's a lot of free training online, or you could go through lynda.com, you could go through Coursera.com, you can go through Skillshare.com, lots of different things. However, one of the best things for free that you can hold in your hand is GC Learn Free. Does anybody use this? Not only for computers, they have stuff in here about soft skills. That's really hard to teach. Everybody knows it, but it's really hard to articulate, okay? So for instance, I'm trying to show the channel on YouTube, okay? So because everybody has a YouTube app, they can follow along with that. They have really good video playlists. So they have one for the computers. Now, do they have the playlist for all of them? No, they don't, but they have individual videos there. They have one for Office 365. They have something in there about math anxiety. I know somebody who dropped out of high school just because they could do everything else, but they really had math anxiety. So they're back getting their GED right now. Okay, so the person said, hey, that really helped them. She thought she was the weird person, okay? It's not weird to have anxiety, okay? Active listening, a soft skill that I wish sometimes teachers would practice, right? I know, or my principal. Anyway, resolving workplace conflict. Another thing that we can use in our schools. Here's a great one, living in a digital world. And I'm seeing more and more, what do I want to see? Stories about people getting off the computer, or their computer is interfering with them with having a relationship with their family, or what is real and what isn't real. Somehow I went through a phase in my life that I thought the stuff on the computer was more real than real life. So there's a lot of different topics. It's really rich. You can slow YouTube channel videos down. The other thing is that if you are in a classroom, because the person who's doing a presentation, and this is where you get the upper level students to prepare things for the lower level students, they can basically take this video, prepare a presentation, prepare exercises for it, and present it to the lower classes. And that's been really helpful, because you're absolutely right that this is the speed for native speakers. But you know that they also have this in Spanish too. They have a YouTube website in Spanish. So please take a look at that. Now, the section on resumes is really good too. I want to talk about this a little bit more. If you go to the desktop, You have it in multiple languages. You have it, the entire desktop could be in Spanish or it can be in Portuguese. And you're thinking, I don't know, we don't have very many Portuguese speakers here, okay? But if you go and start digging into the courses, they have courses in Russian, in Vietnamese, in Chinese. So please go and dig in more into the courses themselves. Okay, so yes, I agree. The YouTube videos are really fast. They are for native speakers. But if they're going through the lessons themselves, you're getting enough visual clues, audio clues, and practice with the widgets that can make this really good. Okay, and they can organize by class. The other thing is okay, so this is GCF Free Global. This one is anybody using North Star, where you can basically take a certification test to prove that you have specific digital literacy skills. So even though that these are desktop, they work, you build on what you see on YouTube. You basically go back to seeing what is on the desktop, and then you get the certification through here. Or you can go through the courses through North Star themselves. COAPPS 50. You have to do study skills. What's the big issue about study skills? Sometimes it's not the information, but the time to finding the time to study. Finding the time, so many students drop their classes because there's conflicts. It's like everything's perfect. If everything goes perfect, everything will be perfect, right? However, if one thing falls apart, a car doesn't work, or somebody has a doctor's appointment, or whatever the case may be, everybody's schedule falls apart. You don't study for that class, you don't pass that test, you have to retake it. Your schedule is thrown off. So, everybody has Google, a lot of people are familiar with the Google Calendar. Use this to create calendars for study, for work and for study, that actually reflects on people's real life. Because you can color code it, you can rebalance it and just see visually how is it balancing out for you. So you can take a look at this, and it has many, many tutorials online to how to work with your calendar. And what's really good on here is that you can embed notes related to, say for instance, if you have to prepare a report, hey, I found a really good resource for that report, stick it in the calendar, boom, it's there when you have to study, and you don't have to go searching for it. So you use this also as a way to store information so you can basically turbocharge your calendar. This one, what we don't know about is a lot of our community colleges are now using Canvas. Does anybody have experience with Canvas? This is really important for our students who are stepping over into the community college. So maybe they know about Moodle, maybe they've done with we've done Google Sites or whatever the case may be, or Google Classroom, I'm sorry. But then stepping over and learning how to learn Canvas learning management system is very important. You can integrate the calendar of all these assignments that are due. You can integrate that with your own personal Google Calendar. And that's going to be really helpful to make sure that you stay on track, and then you have a direct link back into the course so you can go and complete your assignments. They have a really good explanation at this website, communitycanvas.com, and then also they have a really good less than 2-minute tutorial how to integrate your Canvas calendar with your Google Calendar. It's really straightforward and very, very helpful. It's going to save a lot of people a lot of tears and help people ensure them or support their success as they transition to a community college. Because what's the big problem when you're doing online classes? Anybody did an online class? You think, I'll get to it tomorrow.
It's too easy to
too easy to procrastinate. Canvas, when you're first starting out in Canvas, they basically really emphasize that you have to create a system, otherwise you will fall behind. Okay, so this is really important for our students as they transition from the adult school to our community colleges. So using Google Calendar and Canvas together will help them with their success. All right, this is one of my proposed workforce training apps. So we had several workforce training apps. One was related to childcare, one is related to IT, one is related to, what is that, healthcare? Something with healthcare. So anyway, I have a proposed one. At our school, 10:30, we have half our students leave because where are they going? They're going to work in our restaurants. Are they getting top dollar? Are they being paid a just wage? Sometimes yes, but a lot of times no, okay? What's one of the things that could help them show that they are engaged in a profession and just not there to a human head of lettuce, okay? So going through and getting their Safe Serve food handler license, okay? Safe Serve also has, so there is an online app for Safe Serve. But they also have a whole series on their website for being in management, becoming an inspector, so you can go all the way up the food line with this. So taking a look at this, I think this would be a really good COAPPS for us because so many of our students are involved with food handling and the hospitality industry. Sorry? No, there is not one. I know. Can we go back real quickly and take a look at the COAPPS for 70? So this is what we have here. We have one for early childhood education. Very, very important because a lot of our older seniors are doing childcare, but they're getting paid pennies compared to what they could be making, okay? So if they take a little bit more education, they get the English for this, they can basically start earning a sustainable wage for themselves and their family, okay? And also a lot of times with this one with early child care, I've especially seen this in my community, as soon as the kids go to school, the grandparents really don't have anything to do, they're seen as more of a burden than anything else. It's like, you were here to take care of my kids, now we don't need you anymore, okay? Go to English class. Well, a lot of times they've been here for maybe 10 years. They could be, or much more, and it's like, wait, now I have to go learn English? So if they were learning English all along and learning about early childhood education and learning about child care, they could easily step into a very good job about childhood or early education. Again, with healthcare, a lot of our students, some of them are going through home care support. So we have a lot of students who are getting somebody to do that. And they do go through a series of classes in their own language for that. However, I'm saying, why can't we have those same classes that are offered in Vietnamese, why can we not offer these in English? Okay? And maybe step these people towards becoming a CNA. Because sometimes these people are offering really important and vital home care support, medical support that would basically bankrupt a family if they had to do it themselves, if they had to pay for it themselves. So anyway, next one, construction trades. There are different ones, especially OSHA has a lot of good apps related to construction, a job on the construction site safety, and also related to heat. Particularly, is anybody familiar with New Readers Press? They just came out with a series of novel scenes. One is, in one of the books, a person basically collapses through heat stroke. They have they actually have an app from OSHA that tries to determine how hot is it? Is it too hot on your job site? If it's too hot, people have to go home, okay? So learning to comply about this saves the business in the long run and keeps people working at a professional level. Taking a look at infotech, a lot of people are using GC free learning to support learning about Office 365, learning about Google, the Google apps. So again, we could support this, but that's why we have these. I really think that we should consider doing something in hospitality as CASAS. I'm sorry. Another proposed app that I have, this is not a COAPPS, but this is an app. California Adult School, we used to not have a website. If you went to the Department of Education for the United States and typed in information for learning English, a lot of our adult schools would not be on that app because we were not receiving federal funding. The best app or the best source out there for a long time was an app or a website through OTAN that basically showed most of our adult schools. This has basically been upgraded to California Adult Schools CAS, okay? So you can type in your zip code and find an adult school. And they divide it out by ESL or GED or citizenship. So that's really helpful. However, what I think we need is we need to put in post-secondary and job training sites there too. So for instance, they don't have EOCCs, the places where they do job training. They don't have some of those job training sites or technical schools. They don't have the junior colleges. And we really need this kind of information to help facilitate the transition from adult schools into job training and into upper education. So this is a proposed app that I have. I hope you support that, yeah? Okay, so how do we support? That's gonna be real interesting. So I just saw one of the people from OTAN walk in, so we're gonna talk about that later on, okay? Yeah, so I'm at the end of my presentation, and of course I did not put it in my evaluation code. Is there anything that we got about 5 minutes, is there anything you would like to talk about? So when I do this again, I'm gonna put it back in. What's the difference between 231 and 243? Okay, and then build it out from there, okay? Thank you very much.
Great.
And then one of the final things I have to say, it's not about our money, it's about the students' money, because the bottom line, we're getting our students ready for the workforce so they can live and prosper. And that's the most important thing, okay? So anyway, thank you so much for coming. I really, really appreciate it, okay? Thank you.